Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Digital Classroom. We're waiting for all the live streams to start. I see that YouTube is starting up. I hear from Week, I hope soon, that Facebook is starting up, and then we can start our broadcast. Week, is Facebook running?
Yes.
Yes. Oh my, everything is working at once. Don't say that too loud. Are you ready, guys? Here we go. Okay, and we're live. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Digital Classroom. Digital Classroom is of course made possible by BenQ and Rogue. Now what is Rogue? If you use speedlights or small flash or whatever you want to call them, those little things where it's emit light and it isn't a light bulb, those are speedlights. And Rogue Expo Imaging actually have great modifiers for those. And they even have a flash bender with the Frank Dorov name on it. So what's not to like, right? And we're going to use them today. So today it's about speedlights and of course also about, well, retouching. And for retouching you need a great monitor. And what monitor do we use? Well, we use BenQ monitors, of course, because BenQ without a doubt gives you the best bang for your buck. And it's hardware calibratable, so what's not to like, right? So those two make these possible, make these episodes possible. Now do remember, this is a live stream, so if I say something wrong or offend you, it was not meant that way. Dutch is my native language, English is not. Now if it's bloody funny, it was absolutely meant that way. So keep that in mind, please. Okay, so this is, I think, the first episode of the new year, right?
Yes.
But it's too late to say Happy New Year. But still, we hope that you have a blast in the new year. So what are we going to do today? Now, one of the most asked questions is probably, Frank, my studio is too small. Or, Frank, I don't have your space. Or, Frank, or whatever. There's always an excuse. There's always something why you can't make a shot. Or why you can't work. I have a little bit of a headache. I can't do anything today. Or, well, you know what, I don't feel very... There's always an excuse. Now, my excuse is actually that, well, don't find any excuses. Just do the stuff that you like and just do your photo shoot. Today, it's about small spaces because that's the most heard question. My studio isn't big enough. Now, as you guys might know, I've written a book called Mastering the Model Shoot. Now, Mastering the Model Shoot was written a few years ago and it actually became a bestseller. Thank you so very much, guys. It was written in English and later translated in Chinese, traditional Chinese, Czech, and later on in Dutch. And the cool thing is, for Van Duren Media in the Netherlands, I already wrote a book called The Magic of the Small Strobe, which was never translated into any other language. And they've been asking me for a while now, hey Frank, would you like to write a new book? And I always said no. For the very simple reason, Mastering the Model Shoot is literally a book which covers model photography, in my opinion, from A to Z. So meaning the complete range. So why write another book? If I write another book, it has to be completely different. And with completely different, I actually mean completely different. Something completely different. So I was thinking about, let's do a book about, well, street and travel photography. And then I was thinking like, no, there's something that's way cooler. And I can announce to you guys that I'm actually writing the book. I'm already at chapter 4 or 5. So it's not almost done, but we're pretty far ahead. And the book, the new book, is all about working in any situation. So no excuses. If you only have a restroom to shoot, there's an image in the book which actually was shot inside the restroom. If you have a big, like, outside location, like, for example, an airplane museum, there's some images in there shot on an airplane museum. The new book will cover literally everything from your first studio in your house, where you literally just remodel your living room and go to your studio. But it will also cover everything else, starting with a fixed studio in your attic, a fixed studio in your garage. Then we go to an anti-kraakpand. I don't know the exact term in English, but it means that you get it very cheap because, well, they don't want any squatters in there. And then finally we end up with our own studio, and we give you a lot of tips about how to handle your power, how to work with everything. And in between I give you lighting tips, posing tips, and whatnot more. It's going to be an awesome book, but it's going to be from the other side than Mastering the Model Shoot. Mastering the Model Shoot was all about working with the model and lighting and retouching. This book is going to be everything that's around the model. So location, how do you make sure that you don't end up with the wrong images? How do you make sure that your model actually can pose in your studio? And a lot more of that kind of stuff. So it's really cool, and we hope to release the book in June or July. So take note of that if you're in the Netherlands, because sorry guys, the book at the moment is only in Dutch. So if you're watching and you want to translate the book into another language, let me know. The other thing why I tell you guys this is actually I'm looking for tips. Yes, there will be one chapter, your tips, where I want tips from you guys, and I don't need tips about if you're on location, use a small strobe. I know that stuff. I want tips that are unique, like, hey Frank, I always struggle with storing my backdrops, and I really found a very, very simple way. Go to IKEA, buy this or that. That kind of tips I need. So send them to info@frankdorff.com, and at that point, who knows, maybe you will end up in that chapter on the book, and we already got a lot of tips in. So I'm going to select the best ones, and the best one are going to win actually an instructional video. So that's going to be awesome. Hey, today, small spaces. So we have a model, and we have a very tight space. Now in our studio, I have to explain that we have a lot of tight spaces. And the reason for this is very simple. I love to work in tight spaces. I love to work in areas where I can actually make my model pose and do some other funky stuff. Now, by the way, I see that YouTube is, let me see, YouTube is buffering. So I will quickly refresh and see if that's a problem that's actually normal or that we can fix that. Let me just refresh for 1 second. And I think it's on our side because I think you guys, yeah, there we go. It was just on our side, sorry. Okay, if you have any questions in between, feel free to ask, just interrupt everything. Eneweek is monitoring both YouTube and of course Facebook, so make sure you check that out too. And well, any questions you have, feel free. First setup. In our studio, we have several small spaces. I like small spaces for the very simple reason, you make it compact. And of course, I also like big spaces, but with small spaces, you get that real feel of people sitting next to each other and next to the wall, and you can make your lighting bounce off the wall. And it's you know what, it's just cool working in tight spaces. So in our studio we have different walls. Now for example, the wall is 5 meters and we have different colors just blending together. So we actually have 2 sets in 5 meters distance. But there's also something else. What a lot of people don't know is that our studio was actually an old church. It's not really a church, it's from Jehovah's Witnesses before we bought it, so now it's our studio. And we still have like the, how do you call that in a week? Podium?
Stage.
The stage. We still have the stage in there. And to get up the stage, we have this small ladder. And you know what? That's very tight. So it's very cool to have a model sitting there and just using the sides. Now, when you're on a tight location, one of the things that is really tricky is where do you leave those strobes? You can use big strobes, big softboxes, but it won't fit for the very simple reason I hardly fit. And I'm a big guy, so maybe you and a bigger strobe will fit, but I won't. So for this setup, we're actually having our model in between those 2 walls, and we're using speed lights. So I think it's time in a week, what do you think, to go to the location?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's travel to the location. Are you guys ready? I am ready. So let me first show you where Nadine is actually sitting, because Nadine is our model for today. Nadine is sitting there, as you can see. Please wave. There you go. Hello, Nadine. So as you can see, that was Nadine. So let's go to that location and let's take over from there. And at that point, I'm going to switch over to multi-view so you guys can actually see what I'm doing in Capture One. We're using the new Capture One, the new Capture One 12. It has just been released. It has some really cool new features, and without any doubt, check it out. It's literally awesome. Let me first see if there's any questions on YouTube, because I have some questions here. Hello, Frank. It's time again. Time for what? It's time for digital classroom. Yes. Okay, Frank, can you explain how to manage 2 different backgrounds in a small space? Okay, now this is something that a lot of people will struggle with, and to be totally honest, it's something that's pretty normal that you struggle with. How do you have 2 backdrops in one tight location? Very simple, use them both. Sounds obvious, right? Now, if there's something in your area what you don't like, for example, there's a big pole there and you don't like that pole. Now, let's say we have something like this. This is the pole. Now, I can, of course, try to cut the pole out, but it won't work. So why not just let your model pose against it, use it. So if there's a distracting substance, a distracting thing in your area of interest, just shoot it with that distracting thing in the pose. I hope that makes sense. I think I slur my language a little bit. But you know what I mean, right? If there's something really annoying, just use it. And at that point, you make it part of your photo, and it becomes more interesting. And for you, it becomes a real challenge, because how do you combine it? How do you combine those two backdrops? Maybe you split it. Maybe you make your model wear something that's split right in the middle. So one side is on that side of the backdrop, another side is on that side. The creativity, guys, come on, be creative. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to multi-view, and then we're going to go to the first photo. And of course, today we're going to do photos, and we're going to do the retouching. So it's going to be an awesome day. 2 hours, actually. Okay. So Enrique's taking over for me there, and I'm going to go here. Okay, so the first thing that I have to explain to you guys is actually what I'm shooting with. So what I'm shooting with is of course the Sony a7R III. Love the camera. But on top there's a trigger. Now this trigger is the Photix Odin 2 for Sony. The cool thing about this trigger is it has a display, and I can literally just steer all my strobes. I'm using speed lights, but still I can see what my speed lights are doing, and I can choose on my trigger for manual mode or TTL. Now let's just make it simple for myself for now. Let's go to A, let's go to mode, let's go to TTL. Let's go to B and mode off. So now I have only my A strobe, and I'm using ETTL. Now ETTL actually means metering through the lens. So you take your picture and the camera just calculates what you need, and it will give you a proper exposure. It will give you an exposure. Now if that exposure is 100% correct, let's see what happens. Because, well, I have a little bit of a trick for it. So I'm going to place my light pretty close to the model. I'm going to turn it on. The light. Let's go to channel A. There we go. Okay, everything is on TTL, and I'm using it on what a lot of people say 45-degree angle, because that's pretty cool. Yeah, sure. Now, because I'm shooting pretty close by, I have a different lens on my camera than I normally have. I absolutely love the 24-70 2.8 G master serial number. Now, that's not really important, but I love that 24-70 for the very simple reason it gives me a lot of looks. It gives me semi-wide angle, it gives me tele. So in other words, I can compress and I have a cool wide angle. At this point, because it's really close to the model, I'm actually using a 12-24 from Sigma. I tested the Sony a while ago, it's absolutely awesome, but I still have that Sigma one. And I'm using a converter because I still have the A-mount version. Now, I have my strobe set up on ETTL, and that actually means that I don't have to do anything. The only thing I have to do is set my camera on manual mode, choose my ISO. In this case, I'm going to go for ISO 200, and I'm going to shoot on, let's say, f4 5.6. Let's go to 5.6. Why not? Now, why ISO 200? Very simple. ISO 200 is noise-free, but it will give my batteries just the double of life of ISO 100, and it recycles faster. Okay, I'm going to take one shot. I'm going to do it very simple. Focus on my model. And there we go. And awesome. My strobe actually calculated everything. Isn't it absolutely cool? So now you see the image and you go like, yeah, Frank, that's awesome. But you have that problem with your 12mm. Actually not, guys, because this is actually the 12mm. So as you can see, the first image I shot on 24, this is 12. Now this gives me a lot of options. There's only one thing you do have to realize when you're shooting with an extreme wide angle. The extreme wide angle distorts. What is distorts? It changes the look of the picture. You have to realize that a camera doesn't see any depth. The only thing a camera sees is something that's closer to the lens is rendered bigger. Something that's further away from the lens is rendered smaller. Now, as a rule of thumb, remember that the higher the millimeters go, so you go from 24 to, for example, 70, the more it compresses. So on 12mm, this will give you a huge hand and a small face. The face looks like it's a mile away. On 400mm, the hand that's here will actually look like it's here, so it compresses everything. That's also why when you shoot on 400mm, your backdrop is beautifully out of focus, even if you shoot on f5.6. So everything is okay with the cameras, Anouk?
Yes, but the stand is in the way, so the camera focuses on the stand and
not
the
camera
on your
focuses
face.
on the stand. Okay, so I have to move the stand a little bit. Well, because I'm shooting ETTL, that doesn't really matter, because I can just move the stand away. That's better?
No.
Okay, where does it focus?
I don't know, not on you.
Okay, let me help you out. Okay, I will very quickly check the camera. Sorry guys. Let me see what's going on. Okay, focus. Let's go to autofocus.
And there's a question too.
Okay, if you have questions in between, Annemiek, do them very quickly because then I can set this up.
Does it also work with the Nikon CTL system?
Yes, it works also with Nikon. Okay, let me see if we now have focus on auto. Autofocus,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
And if I'm correct, everything should be in order now. Okay, sorry for that, guys. So, am I in focus now?
Yes.
Ah, cool. It's better when I'm in focus. Okay, let's go to 24 and just do that shot again. Now she's in the pretty dark, so I have to focus on her eyes. Okay, there we go. Oh. Now my model is actually in the pitch dark. And I'm having a bit of a trouble with my focus at the moment, guys. So what we're gonna do in a second is I'm actually gonna go for manual focus, sorry. Okay, there we go. It's one of those days. Okay, cool. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I changed the angle of my lighting, and the first thing you will see is that we actually have a little bit of a different lighting. So before we had like a high contrast setup, and this is a little bit more. I like this a bit more. It's a bit more extreme. So let's try it a little bit more. Let's just angle that light. There we go. Still gonna try if I get my autofocus to work. There we go. Okay. So I changed the light a little bit more to give it more angle. But in all honesty, when you look at those shots, it's not yet interesting. And remember what I told you. We have that problem with the distortion of your wide angle. Now, if you use wide angle distortion in your benefit, you can actually do something pretty cool with it. So you know that it distorts, right? So why not use that distortion? And let your model, for example, just tilt her feet towards me. Can you hold your feet really close? And focus on her face. And there we go. And just do this. So now what I do is by using the distortion of that wide angle, I actually create a really nice leading line towards my model. But in all honesty, when you look at the shot, it's not that interesting yet. So what do you have to do? Well, it's all about lighting and control of your lighting. As you can see here, I like that high contrast, but there's still a lot of the sidewall hit. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this light source and we're actually going to move it all the way to the side. I hope you guys can see this on the high cam. And I'm going to place it really close to my model. So just barely out of the frame. The only thing I now have to tell my model is make sure you look up, because the lighting will actually hit her eyes. Now, if she doesn't want to look up, or if it's not feasible for your model to look up, there's a very simple solution, and they're called shades, sunglasses. Because if you wear sunglasses, well, you don't have to see the eyes. Really nice. So I'm shooting again from a very, very low angle. I'm now at 24 mil. I think we're going to need some extra lighting here, Annemiek, if you have. So can you get me one extra panel? Or maybe turn on the fluorescent lighting of the studio. That's better, I think. That's faster. Now again, the Sony works really well. On the cameras you see it because we're shooting on low lux setting, but it's too dark to really focus on this lens. So we have a little bit of extra light, and there we go. We have immediate focus. Cool. Love it. And the fluorescent tubes don't show up in the picture, so that's great. So now I have way more contrast, and the only thing I have to do is make sure that the model keeps looking towards the light, because if she doesn't, she will have dark eyes. Okay, so this is on 24 mil. I'm a little bit closer to the model, and I still have that option of 12. Now you might wonder, hey Frank, why not use your 24 to 70? There's always something you have to realize. Do I want to get closer to the model or further away? Now I know that I'm almost against the back. So 70 mil doesn't make any sense here. 24 will probably be what I'm shooting at. So at that point, I'm actually choosing to shoot on the 12 to 24, meaning I can always go wider. And in this case, I want to go wider. I want to make that really funky shot. Let's see if we even can get the fluorescent lights of the studio in. There we go. Now, of course, that fluorescent light is way too dark at the moment. So let's see if we can make that shine a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower my shutter speed to, let's say, 30th of a second. There we go. And at that point, you will see that the fluorescent lights are a little bit brighter. Now, this is a rule of thumb that you have to realize and remember. Your aperture is for your strobe. Your shutter speed is for the ambient light. Remember, the strobe is a peak, so it's a one-time pulse. Your ambient light just accumulates, so meaning it starts out with nothing and then slowly it gets more, because it's continuous, right? It's constant. So if you want to make the light bulb a little bit brighter, just change your shutter speed. Now, I hear you say like, hey Frank, can you also change the aperture? Yes, I can, because I'm shooting ETTL. So I can go to 4.5, which is the fastest of this lens, make the shot, and now I actually have it on 4.5. The problem we have at this moment is that when you look at the picture now, we're actually going to get a little bit of the studio lighting in from, for example, the LED panels. So at that point, I have to make a decision and go like, you know what, let's stay at 5.6. Let's go back to 125th of a second. And let's just forget about the fluorescent tubes. But I still wanted to show you in between. Or maybe we can do something in Photoshop. So let's include them and see what we can do later on. I'm still shooting ETTL. So meaning the camera doesn't do anything, the camera does everything for me. I don't use any light meters. And we have some really nice low angle shots. And from this angle, I really like it. And I can literally create contrast by just moving myself more towards the side. So the more I'm shooting under an angle of the light, the more I'm getting that really nice high contrast look. And what you can see now is now actually ETTL messes up. Too bright or too dark. It just doesn't know. Way too dark and way too light. And let's try it again. It's okay, but it's a little bit hot. And way too dark. And try it again. A little bit too bright, and probably the next one will be, well, or too bright or too dark. There we go. Now, why is this happening and why is it so weird? And maybe you think that your camera will handle this better. I can already tell you your camera won't handle this a lot better. The reason is very simple. Your camera and your strobe system will always try to get it to 18% gray. 18% gray is middle gray. In Photoshop, that's 1:8, 1:8, 1:8. Red, green, blue, all 1:8. In real life, 18% gray is pretty dark. And what happens now is the camera tries to determine, okay, I have this model, I have this backdrop, let's make everything 18% gray and then probably the exposure is right. Now if I shoot it under a normal angle, so pretty flat, ETTL is pretty good. Chin up just a little bit, Nadine. There we go. So as you can see here, the exposure is pretty much spot on. There's not much you need to change. It actually looks very, very well. If I let me rephrase. If I shoot under an extreme angle, with high contrast, sometimes I talk too fast, you will see that actually the face of the model starts to blow out. How do you change that? Well, you can use flash exposure compensation. So let's try that. We press on A and we just simply do one stop less. In a moment I will show you for the camera how to do that. And now I actually nailed the shot. So wow, this looks way better. I actually like this shot. It's pretty awesome. It's very cool. I think we're done. No, we're not. So I like this shot, but you know, I think it can be a little bit more interesting. I think we need to add a little bit of extra lighting to the back, right? And maybe use a light meter. I think we need to use a light meter. What do you guys think? Yeah, I think so. So how do you use a light meter for small strobes? Well, there's one problem. I have one remote, and that one remote, I change the output of my strobes. So that means that to meter the light, I literally have to take it off my camera. So I'm going to turn the camera off, take this one off, and now I have to remember what do I want my strobes to be on. So I'm going to take the light meter, going to get a little bit closer to the camera. Let's see if it picks it up. Just going to start up the light meter. And there we go. I'm going to go for ISO 200. And I'm going to aim for 5.6, 4.5, somewhere in the region of 5.6. The thing I have to do on my trigger is a little bit, well, the same actually. What you do is you press A, you go to mode, and you go to manual. And now the only thing I have to do is just change the output. Oh, sorry guys. Press A and just change the output. So that's all we have to do. And at that point, I can just put it back on my camera. And I know that if I shoot it, well, flat or under a high angle, I still have that same light output. And that's the cool thing. ETTL is great, but if you want continuity, use a light meter. Okay, let's meter the light. And let's go test. 5.67, 5.68. Okay, so let's just go down. There we go, 1/16. There we go, 5.6, awesome. So now 5.6, and I know that my manual mode is now on 1/16th of a 1/16th power. And just to show you guys, if I'm correct, I will now have the proper exposure. Let's start up the camera. And I will immediately show you the light setup in case you don't see that very well on the cameras. So we have one strobe on the on top, and it just moves down. Okay, there we go. So I want to make it a little bit more interesting. And to make it interesting, we actually have another strobe on the podium, and we're going to change to that one. So what's on here? Well, this strobe is pretty interesting because it uses a grid and a snoot. So I can really pinpoint the light towards my model. And let me just use that for now as a modeling light. Oh, sorry, as an accent light. So strobes are mounted the other way around, guys. So I have to change some stuff. One moment. There we go, channel B. And just aim it at my model. Just guesstimate. There we go. I think that will be fine. And otherwise we can always change it again. And now the cool thing is, because I have everything under the remote, I don't have to change anything manually. In other words, I can still shoot. So first I'm going to shoot without that backlighting. There we go. And now I can actually just turn the backlighting on, channel B, manual mode, or ETTL. You can combine those two, no problem at all. And let's put it on full power. Let's see what happens. Oh, full power. Because we always need more power. There we go. And now you have this beautiful, beautiful side lighting of your model. It's a little bit too strong, so let's just turn it down just a notch. There we go, one stop down. Okay, low angle. And there we go, love it. Okay, really nice. And if you angle it right, you have that little bit of lens flare in there, which I absolutely love. Some people will go like lens flare is wrong. I think lens flare is absolutely awesome, because that's why there is lens flare. Use it. Very nice. And as you can see, I'm shooting under extremely low angles, and I'm absolutely maximizing that distortion of that wide angle lens. I just like that. That's nice. You have to make sure that you coach your model constantly. I'm not doing that now because Nadine is doing a great job. But actually I have to tell her, hey, you're doing fine, you're doing great. There's only one problem with this setup. You can probably already see it. I'm blowing out a little bit of the side. I still like that backdrop. So I like that lens flare, I like that little bit on top. But I'm actually blowing out my model. Now on that snoot, and I'm going to show you that in a second, there's actually a grid. Now what a grid does is actually it channels the light. So it makes the light more narrow. If I take the grid off, it will be like this. If I set the grid on, it will actually be like this. So that means that I can steer that light. Now I know that for lens flare, I have to make sure that it hits my sensor under a straight angle. If it doesn't hit it under a straight angle, it will be difficult to get lens flare. So what if I just move that light a little bit more to the side and just aim it towards my camera? So let's try that. Oh, and by the way, these orbit stands are really cool. They're really small and they're incredibly heavy. So that's really nice stuff. I will make a post on it very soon on social, so you can check it out. Okay, I'm now aiming it a little bit more towards my camera and away from Nadine. There we go. And this is like inches. So a very, very slight changes are more than enough. And of course you have to make some test shots. And it's a shame you can't do that via remote, changing your lights. Or you use a VEL. In case you don't know what a VEL is, it's a voice-activated light stand. Your wife, for example. There we go. So now you can see that we have a lot more lens flare, because now actually it's hitting straight on my lens. Oh, I changed my aperture, sorry guys. There we go. And you can see that Nadine is now getting a kiss of light, but not too much. I didn't change anything in the output, but I get more lens flare and less on my model. And that's actually what I mean with control of your lighting. You literally now have total control, and you can literally just say, I want a little bit more side light or a little bit less. So for example, Anne-Louis, can you change the light just a little bit more angled?
Which light?
That one. Because I need you in a second for something else. Just aim it a little bit towards Nadine. Just a little bit. There we go. It's more than enough. Just stay there if you want. Oh, also if you don't want. Nice. Let me see if I like that. I actually like that. But aim it a little bit more towards Nadine. Just a little bit. There we go. That's awesome. Now I like it. Okay. And let's just turn on the smoke machine. Anne-Louis, did you place the smoke machines? No, right?
No, I didn't charge it.
Oh my. Well, then we need to do something else. Anne-Louis is a professional fogger. And what I mean with that is she knows how to fog a lens. So Anne-Louis, are you ready? 1, 2, go. Oh, sorry. 1, 2, go. And now, depending on the humidity in our studio, it will take a little while for it to dissolve. And there we go. Try it again if you want. And a little bit less. There we go. Yeah. Okay, one more. I need to wait a little bit longer. Nadine, look a little bit towards the light. There we go. Now we have it. Great. One more. Oh. One moment, Annemiek. Okay, try it. What did you eat?
Garlic.
I thought so. Okay, only on the bottom part. There we go. Okay, a little bit more, but only on the bottom part, so cover the rest. And as you can see, by covering it with her hand, she can actually control the fog. So that's absolutely awesome. And I trained to say fog and not something else. Don't even go there. So that's the first setup. Let's go to Photoshop and see what we can do. And then we're actually going to use this exact same setup, but we're going to use a different backdrop. And we're going to not, let me rephrase. We're going to use the same location, but we're going to use a different backdrop. We're going to use our old door. So let's first go to Photoshop and answer some questions of you guys. Nadine is going to change, and then we're going to do set 2, and I'm going to show you some retouching, of course, in between. So let me run to this side and kick Anne-Louis out of my chair. There we go. Thank you. Oh, that's something else. Okay, let's switch over to desktop. Or let me first just show you some of the, if there are any questions in between. Let me see. Hey Frank and Anne-Louis, greetings from Thailand. Hey Thailand. And we have a retracted message and, okay. No more questions. Okay, that's cool. Let's switch over to this. Okay. And before we do the retouching, I first want to tell you a little bit about the lighting that we use. So we use the Photix Mitros Plus strobes. And the reason I'm using those strobes has actually a very, very simple explanation. Now, when you're on location, there's a few things you have to bring with you. You have to bring your speed lights, you have to bring a trigger, and you have to bring a receiver. Now, in the old days, and still nowadays, by the way, there are strobes that use the so-called line of sight triggering. That means they use infrared or they use simply another technique, but they use line of sight. So if the strobes see each other, they will actually fire. If they don't see each other, bye-bye, no fire. No strobe, I mean, of course. Strobes who are going fire, doesn't make any sense. So what is the main problem with line of sight? In the studio, that's pretty okay, it works. But when you're on location, the sun is often very, very bright, and it actually means that you don't have a proper line of sight and your strobe won't fire. So that's why you use radio triggers. Now, radio triggers are, well, in the old days, very expensive. Nowadays, you can buy them for almost a song. So what I use is the Photix Mitros Plus. Those are pretty high-end, but they are still very, very affordable. And because I combine them with the Mitros Plus from Photix, I don't use an extra receiver. And that was one of the things that I hated about my old system. I have to have a strobe, a receiver underneath, and then the trigger on the camera. And when you look at small strobes or speedlights that are mounted on a tripod or on a studio stand, it is stable, but it's not like, hey, this is really stable, let's just leave it there for a while. It's still a little bit wiggly. So when you have a receiver with on top a strobe, it all gets a little bit more unstable. And the cool thing about the Mitros Plus is that they actually have the receiver inside. And it doesn't take a lot of batteries. And when you travel, you don't have to bring extra batteries. And the very simple reason is, well, it's inside, so it works. And the same thing goes, by the way, for the Canon system, the RT600. That's where I worked with before I went to Sony. And those use a similar system where the receivers are actually inside the strobes. And I really, really like that. So make sure when you buy a system, invest a little bit more and get those strobes where the receivers are inside the strobes. Okay, Alison is online. This is great. I'm always at work. When you do these, happy I'm getting to watch. Hey, Alison. Awesome. Ulrich, hi, I'm sitting in a big library in Munich and you saved my day. Why did I save your day? So I'm very curious to hear. Did you run into any problems and were surfing on YouTube and I just gave you the tip when you needed it, or something else? So Ulrich, let me know. I'm very curious about that. Okay, so one of the things that you do on location, you can shoot with speedlights, but you can also shoot with other light sources. Now, a lot of people struggle with this, and that's why we made a video. And I'm going to show you that video trailer now. And if you want to support our work, make sure you get one of our instructional videos. So, let me show you the trailer. And I really like this one. I think this is one of the best videos we ever did. In this tutorial, we're actually going to show you that you can make great images with very, very simple tools. What to think about a tungsten light bulb. The LED panel. A ring light, your standard flashlight, the Fresnel, the Westcott ice light, smartphones, the Lume Cube, the chandelier. Christmas lights. We call them light snakes over here. This is one of the most creative lighting videos I ever created. I'm very enthusiastic about it. It's available now via our website. See the links. Okay, and we're back. So any light will do, meaning just use with any light, whatever light you have. You can use your, well, your cell phone. It's, as somebody actually pointed out, Frank, that's a really expensive light source. Yeah, but you already have it, right? So, hey, why not? Okay, so, retouching. Let me switch over to screens and let me show you what we can do. There we go. Okay, now, first things first. I have to select my images. Now, the thing that I always do when I want to make sure that I have my images in correct order is I actually do this. View, and then, oh, sorry. I still have to get used to the new Capture One. Okay, there we go. They changed the menus around. It's better, but I'm so used to the old one that I'm still looking for the wrong menus. Okay, so everything that's green is actually in focus. It's not really true. Everything that's green has the highest contrast. And, well, one can say if something has high contrast, it's in focus. So that's why we use focus mask. Okay, now first things first, let's change that. So go into your preferences of Capture One, and of course Lightroom doesn't have this option. Don't just stop watching, keep watching, for the very simple reason everything else is also translatable to Lightroom or any other raw converter you use. I'm only going to show this for the people that actually use Capture One. So what you can do with focus is just change your threshold. So now the threshold you can put on 500, but that's a little bit weird. So just go back and just make sure that not too much is green. Like for example, if you put it here, you go like, hey, the picture is in focus, and it's actually not on the eyes. So I often have it like here, 360, 350. Okay, cool. And now I can very quickly see if I actually have focus. So here, and as you can see, I'm pretty stable with focus. This is the one that I did manual focus, and indeed, I didn't have focus peaking on, so this one can go. As you can see, it works really fast, but because everything else is in focus as it looks here, let me see very quickly. Okay, that one isn't. So let's just delete that one. But everything else is in focus. There we go. Okay, looks pretty cool. Okay, so let's just turn that off. And this is, by the way, one of the things that I think is incredibly important for you event photographers or wedding photographers or whatever. Because most of the times you are spent with finding that image that is in focus. And with this way you can literally on the film roll, I still call it the film roll, you can actually see if something is in focus. So that's pretty cool. Okay, let's go back. Now, I have to be honest with you guys. Sometimes I will tell you guys, start at the beginning, go through all the images. But in all honesty, when I want to do it faster, and with Digital Classroom, of course, I want to cut some corners, because we only have 2 hours in live stream. I normally start, when I do it for myself, so when I teach, I start at the first image and build it up, because people can actually see what we changed and what happened. When I do it for myself, and that's also what I'm going to do now, I'm going to start at the end. For the very simple reason, I know the best images are at the end, so why start at the beginning? Because then maybe I give something 5 stars, and in the end I end up with 5-star images, 5 5-star images. Why did I take 5? But 6 5-star images, and then I'm just gonna take 4 out, for example. Why not start from the back and go forward, and then you know, like, hey, this is not working, and I already have my selection, so just keep it like that. Okay, so actually I love this shot, so this is actually my first 5-star. Go here, I don't like the hands. I will move this up a little bit, there we go. I actually like this one too. This is too much. No, don't like this one. And I can tell you why. Look at this. It looks like she has a little bit of a bump. And you don't want that. Okay, this is way too much, and this is Enwick in the frame. She always tries to photobomb me. This one is okay, but I don't like the finger here. Do you see that? No, don't like that. Too much. Too little light in the eyes. It's okay, but barely, so don't do it, because we already have a cool shot. Oh, this one is nice. Let me look at the eyes. No, it's too much squinted. Peter Hurley would love that. No, no. Oh, this is something that looks pretty cool, but I still don't like it too much. Oh, love this one. This is more like the headache shot, so don't take that one. Nice, but not spectacular. I don't like the backlighting here. It's way too harsh. So I'm gonna skip those and maybe take one of the darker ones. Ooh, love this one. Really nice. Okay, and now I don't have to go further back, because I know that when I have my shot, I will actually go to the next set or next lighting change. And in this case, I already started at the end. So when I got my shot, I know there's nothing better. Maybe there's something better, but let's just forget it for now. Okay. Let's go to the start, and I have 3 images selected, high contrast, one of these, and this one. Now, when I have to be totally honest with you guys, let me see which one I like best. I actually like this one best, I think. Although on this one, I like this one best. And they're very, very close. So in this case, I'm going to select this one, and I'm going to give this one 0 stars. So I have 2 images. Let me first start with this one, because that's the most simple one. Now, you can of course add a little bit of shadow detail, cut your highlights, give a little bit more this, but in all honesty, we created a high contrast shot, so why do that? Why not just leave it as it is? And maybe just add a little bit of highlights and shadows? No, I just love it like this. So let's go to Photoshop, Control D. And from here on, everything is the same in Lightroom. With Capture One, we use Control D to actually execute the active recipe. With Lightroom, you use Control E to go to Photoshop. Okay, Enrique, are there any questions on Facebook?
No.
Okay, cool. And for the guys listening, how is the audio? Is the audio okay? And how is the video? We changed some settings because Doorhof is Doorhof is Doorhof. Awesome, Ulrich. Yeah. Okay. Okay, let's go to Photoshop. There we go. Cool. Now, the first thing I always do is the skin. Even if you have a model that has cool skin or great skin, always make sure you go through the skin and just make it nicer. They will really love you for that. So in this case, let's look. Let's go to 100%. Okay, my remote isn't working at the moment. There we go. Okay, when I go to 100%, it looks pretty cool. I do have to change this a little bit and this. I'm using the patch healing brush at the moment. I'm a big fan of the old healing brush where you sample, but the patch healing brush also works. Now, if you're a beginner and you want to like, oh, Frank, what's the patch healing brush? You find it over here. You have two healing brushes, the spot healing brush and the patch. Sorry, it isn't called the patch healing brush. I call it that. It's the spot healing brush and the normal one. If you go to the normal one, what you have to do is you select with the Alt key and you just use that. If you use the spot healing brush, you just do it and Photoshop will determine where it comes from. I have to be honest, I was never a big fan of that spot healing brush, but the last update from Photoshop, although it has a lot of bugs, too many bugs. It looks like a total bug infestation sometimes, but they're fixing it. And in the last update, I really like the spot healing brush, so who knows, maybe I'm gonna switch over to the spot healing brush. Okay, so I have my skin a little bit nicer. But in all honesty, I want it more smoother. And there's always discussion, like how smooth should I go? Should I go for the smooth criminal look or should I go for smooth? That was an inside joke. So anyway, now one of the filters that I use for this is image normal portraiture. Sorry guys, it's been a really busy week. And we have a puppy, which is now almost 3 months old. And it means that we sleep about 5 hours a night. So if I fall asleep during digital classroom, sorry, it's not your fault. You guys are awesome. But we get a really, really bad sleep. Okay, make sure you do it on a new layer. I go to 100%. And in case you want to know what kind of dog we have, it's a Labradoodle. And we don't have it because it's fashionable. We do it because it doesn't shed any hairs. And it's anti-allergic. And I'm allergic. Okay, so what I do, and this is something I have to explain. I always tell people, like, don't overdo skin smoothing. Don't do it on 100%. And still, when you look at my settings, you see that I'm doing it full blast, 100%. Why do I do that? For the very simple reason, I'm not using it on 100%. But when you set it up for 100%, it actually smooths out the skin perfectly, but also changes the color. It smooths out that color. And I found out that somehow I just like that when I do it on 100% and then bring it back a notch in Photoshop later on. So we have it on a new layer, press OK. And there we go. So this is way, way too much. And now the cool thing about Photoshop is you can actually use layer masks. So let's do a layer mask, hide all. And in that case, we have a black piece of paper. Take a brush with white and just paint it in. The thing is, I will only paint it in at 100% in certain areas, like here, the chin, and underneath the chin. And maybe this side where it's in shadow. And there we go. And this. Now everything else, I will actually just lower the opacity of my brush, or you can use touch sensitivity. But I'm not a painter, so I am a little bit reluctant to use that. But some people do. There we go. And now for the hands, the same thing. We have a low opacity, and I'm just going to brush the hands up just a little bit. There we go. And remember, a model always has two hands, unless he doesn't have two hands, but then you know. There we go. Now before and after. Okay, and now what you can do is always change the opacity here, go to 0 and just build it up slightly. And in this case, we're actually going to end up probably around here. This looks pretty cool. a layer flatten image. Okay. Now we have to do something really important, and what we have to do is actually make sure that the backdrop really pops. When you look at this, you can see that we have carpeting over here, you can see that we have a really cool backdrop, and I want the backdrop to come alive. And to come alive, we actually use a filter called Topaz Clarity. And in case you don't know Topaz, it's a company that actually creates something called Topaz Studio, and I highly recommend it. On our website, let me see if I have a link for you guys where we have that discount code, and we don't have it here. Okay, when you go to my website, I will just link that now here. There we go. When you go to my website, there's actually a page that's called discounts, and on the discount page you find a discount for many different plugins like Alien Skin Exposure, DxO. You will find a discount code for, I believe, even MacFun and Skylum, and of course one for Topaz. And I highly recommend you guys to check out Topaz. It's really cool. So we're going to use that now. So first, duplicate layer, and then we're going to run Topaz Studio, and I'm going to go for clarity. Now don't worry, if you start off with clarity, it just starts off with clarity. If you think later, hey, I want detail, you just go to detail, no problem at all. Let me see. Somebody asked me, like, do you ever use frequency separation on skin when it's okay to use? Yes, I use frequency separation on skin, but in all honesty, I want to do it fast. And you can do it with dots and burn. You can do frequency separation. I even have an action here called frequency separation. Oh, I can't do that now because Topaz is running. One moment. So let me first do Topaz. Okay, gonna drag that to my main monitor here, to the Cintiq. Okay. There we go. So I will come back to that later, one moment. Okay, do FD. Okay, there we go. Now, first off, you can make different settings for yourself, presets. Now, I created a few that are actually combined for more pop in your image, like you can see here. So let's just make it first fit on screen. There we go. And now you can see what the effect does. So go to the original and go to the preview. There we go. And just press OK. So this is just the preset I use. And it's nothing spectacular. I just use some settings in Topaz that I really like. And at that point, you can literally just make it cool. Like this. Love it. Okay, so frequency separation, I even have an action for it, as you can see here, where I just recorded it. But in all honesty, I hardly use it anymore because image dynamic portraiture is just way faster, and Topaz has Clean 3, which is way faster, and it just works better. But if you don't have anything on your computer, you don't have any budget for plugins, frequency separation is without a doubt the way to go. I have a video on it online on my YouTube channel. It's free. It's somewhere in the Quite Frankly series. Just check it out. It's really simple to do. Okay, in this case, layer mask, hide all. I don't want anything in there. So take a white brush and just only paint it in the areas where you want it. Now some people ask me, like, Frank, how do you remember if it's a black brush or a white brush? The answer is incredibly simple. There are only two options, white and black. If black doesn't work, then choose white. If white doesn't work, choose black, and it's that simple. You don't have to remember anything. I wish the whole life was that easy. There we go. Okay, just make the brush a little bit smaller and just paint it in here. Now if you want to make sure what you did, there's a very simple trick in Photoshop. Just use your backspace. Sorry, your backslash. And now you can see that I was a little bit sloppy over here. So I'm gonna do that better now. Make sure you don't hit anything from the skin, because that looks nasty. There we go. You don't have to do it 100% nicely for the very simple reason it's only sharpness that I added. It's only structure. So if you're not 100% correct, don't worry at all. It will just look natural because we didn't change any colors. We didn't change any brightness. So anything you do will be fine. Don't worry. You don't have to do it like with a microscope 100% correct. The only thing I do advise you guys is make sure that you are 100% sure you don't hit anything in the skin. So make the skin 100% red in this case. Okay, use the backslash again, and there we go. Before, after, love it. Layer, flatten image. And now there's only one thing, and this is very important. If you have a monitor, make sure you get a monitor like the BenQs that are hardware calibratable. For one very simple reason. There is some detail in shadows, right? And we want to make sure that you see all the detail in the shadows. Now, if I look at this on the Cintiq, and I love the Cintiq, don't get me wrong, I think it's the best gift for photographers. But on the Cintiq, I only see underneath here, I see a little bit of my stand. When I look at my BenQ, I actually see a lot more. So I want to remove that. So go to the European Union flag that's underneath here, and it's also called, of course, the quick mask, but we call it the European Union flag. And just paint in everything where you don't want any detail left. So we're going to use content aware fill in a second. So here we go. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, go here. And now press delete. Now some people ask me like, hey Frank, when I do this, I also have to invert my selection. And I'm telling you this every single episode of Digital Classroom for the very simple reason we get so many emails about this. And in all honesty, I didn't know either until like a year ago when somebody pointed it out to me and I was going like, that's freaking awesome. So what you do is you just double click on that icon. And now you can see selected areas or masked. And out of the box, Photoshop has it on masked areas. Change it to select. For me, it doesn't make any sense to do it the other way around because I'm painting something that I want selected, right? So why do it the other way around? So just double click it, change it, and you're done. Okay, there we go. Now the only thing I have to do is press delete and use content aware fill. And let's see what Photoshop makes of it. Can take a little while because we're also streaming. There we go, looks pretty cool. Of course, we have some problems here, but we use the spot healing brush and let me see if that works. Let me see if this is my lucky day. Close. Okay, now if you want to check and make sure that there's no detail left. Now, in all honesty, I have a calibrated monitor on top. It looks pretty good. It looks actually spot on. But let's say you deliver it to a client and his brightness is way too high and you always get that stuff like, hey, Frank, there's some detail in the backdrop. And you're like, why the heck? What you can do is this. Make a duplicate layer. There you go. Make sure you do that. And then do this. Image, adjustment, curves. And just push it all up. There we go. And now you can actually see if you did it right or wrong. You can, of course, now just heal it by doing this. But will it then also be healed on the bottom layer? Well, you never know, but you can always use layer masks. So this is a way to really check very, very quick and very, very simple if you did your job right. And in my case, if I have to put it up that far, come on, dude, it has to be great. Just calibrate your monitor. So just take it out and we can always do it just to be sure. There we go. Okay. Oh, it's already flattened. Now that's something, by the way, that I always do. I always flatten my images. Some people say, hey, that's wrong. Hey, it works for me, so why not? The only thing I now want to do is I want to make those images pop a little bit more. So I'm going to make a duplicate layer. I'm actually going to take my dodge tool. There we go. I'm just going to go over the highlights, as you can see here. By going over the highlights, I can literally just create a little bit more three-dimensionality, a little bit more oomph to the image. There we go. See before and after. Just gives that a little bit extra sparkle. Okay. And finally, we want to retouch the image, of course, with color. Now, color evokes emotion. And I want to tell a little bit more about it. So I'm going to switch to my main camera. I'm going to take a little bit of a drink in between. Okay, there's a question here. Do I need a 100% Adobe RGB monitor if I shoot for web only? Also, will the colors change significantly when I use Adobe RGB monitor and then convert to sRGB for web? Okay, if you calibrate, and let me put it just straight out, you have to calibrate. I recently got an email from somebody who said, hey Frank, I use a color checker, but my printing department still tells me that my images are too dark. The first thing I asked him, like, hey, are you using a calibrated monitor? Are you using a light meter? And he said, no. Now, don't get me wrong, I love that this guy is using a color checker because the color checkers are really important. I didn't shoot one because I already have the profile in, but hey, color checkers are really important. But it doesn't make any sense at all to only use a color checker and not calibrate your monitor. If you want a proper setup, the first thing you have to do, the first thing, really literally the first thing, calibrate your monitor. Because that's where you look on. Everything else you can do by eye. It's a lot of work, it's not stable, it's not constant because your eyes change, your perceptive vision changes, so it's not good. But at least you can do it by eye if your monitor is calibrated. The second thing you do is use a light meter, because now you know that your exposure is correct. And the third thing you have to do is use a color checker, because if your exposure is correct and your monitor is calibrated, if you use a color checker, you know that now also you can create a profile that your colors are correct. It doesn't make any sense at all to only do the color checker and not the rest, because if you do the color checker, it doesn't work. For the very simple reason you don't have anything to judge it on. So you do the color checker and you change it and your images are too dark because probably your monitor is too light. Let me see. Good job from H Entertainment. Thank you so very much. We love that. And Ineke and Fred, hey, I just gave him your tip. Okay, so let's switch over to alien skin exposure. I have it on top now. And let's drag it to this monitor. And this is also one of the things that a lot of people ask me, like, hey Frank, why do you run that on a separate monitor? Same issue. I love the Cintiq for retouching. It's not the best monitor to judge shadow detail or color on. So I have a BenQ on top. I'll show you that very quickly. So I have the Cintiq here and I have the BenQ monitor on top. And the BenQ is used with Navigator from Photoshop to get me the exactly right colors and shadow detail, and the Cintiq is where I retouch. So, sorry if you got seasick from the camera. Okay, so let's start with alien skin. Now the first thing is, of course, I want to make sure that I get a proper preset. And let me just see what I like. I always call this the clickety-click until I see what I like. I have to remember that I do have to do another shot in a moment, and that one is going to go really fast. So I have to make sure that I choose something that fits also the other one. Oh, I really love this one, but it's a little bit too extreme, I think. Nice. I just love them all, but you can't do them all. Let me see this one. This looks really funky. Yeah, I love this. Okay, go for apply. And this one is actually done. Okay, it takes a little while. There we go, really nice. Let's just blend it in a little bit. Okay, cool. Remember 77% and file close. And now watch what happens when you have your proper workflow. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to go to Capture One and I'm going to take this one. I'm going to do Ctrl D, go into Photoshop. And now the only thing I have to do is Portrait Smooth, press play. Okay, so I have an action where it actually runs Portrait Smooth. I take a white brush. I just go over it on a low opacity setting. There we go. I do it the other way around now. First I started with 100%, now I'm starting with a lower setting. It depends on what you like, and by adding, do you hear that? I'm literally adding extra smoothing by just lifting up the pen and going over the same area again. So I'm building the effect on, and it gives me a lot of control. There we go, it's done. Flatten your image, make duplicate layer, go to filter, go to Topaz Studio, clarity. And because I already know what I want to do, let me switch Topaz over here again. There we go. So go to my favorites. I choose the top one. Press OK. So the previous image I explained everything. Oh, sorry. I have to make sure that I have the desktop picture in picture. I'm so sorry, guys. Nobody saw that I didn't do that. I'm so sorry. Okay. Go to View, Fit on Screen, Layer, Layer Mask, and do, in this case, let's do a Reveal All, why not? And only take the skin out. I'm so sorry, guys, that I did something wrong. There we go. But it was just the same workflow you saw before, so don't worry, you didn't miss anything. Okay, layer, flatten image. Now there are a few things that is wrong because I shot this on a much wider angle. So what I want to do now is I'm actually going to select with that quick mask the areas where I think like, okay, I want to fill this up. So I want to use content to fill for this area. I want to make sure that this is out, this is out. Let me see if I have some detail here. No. And I want that out. Now make sure that you make the brush smaller because you don't want to hit the dress. There we go. Just do this and press delete. Takes a little while because it has to calculate everything. And there we go. Awesome. Okay. On this side everything looks okay except maybe a little bit here. So let's take the clone tool. If this is going too fast, I'm sorry guys, but I try to do everything a little bit faster with retouching so I can give you a little bit more info on the photo shoots. And this is something that I hate. It's repeating patterns. It's repeating patterns in the form of, you can almost call it tractor track sometimes, where you can see that it's like constantly repeating. And it's very simple to solve. Just use your patch or spot healing brush and just take some out. There we go. Maybe here. And just scatter them around. So just move them around with your patch healing brush. Sorry, spot. I don't know why I call it the patch healing brush, but hey. Awesome. There we go. Okay, somebody says your website is pretty confusing. Okay, I don't know why my website is confusing, but I will show you very quickly where you can find it. Maybe it's me, but I think my website is pretty okay. So if you want the discount codes, go to the blog, because that's the main website, and then just go to discounts. So I don't know what's confusing about that, but I think it's pretty straightforward. You go to the blog for everything that you want to know about what we do, and in the menu on the bottom there's discounts. So maybe you can explain what's confusing, because then we can change it for you guys. But I can't make it a lot easier than we have it here. Okay. Now when I look at the image, what I see is, because we used a little bit of the fog from Emmeloord, is that you have lens flare which actually hits the fog and it makes it a little bit brighter. So I want to make that image a little bit darker. So how do you make an image darker? Well, there are a few things. You can of course use curves. For example, you can do this. Image, adjustment, curves. And then just go to, for example, take the blacks down, do this, and then just go up. But as you can see, it becomes a little bit muddy. And that's normal, because when you look at colors, we have RGB, and as soon as you look at what those colors are, you have saturation, luminance, and hue or skew. And hue is actually the skew of the color. Your saturation is how far it's away from your black point, and your luminance is, of course, a little bit connected to that saturation. So when you change the luminance of a color, that color will get darker or more muddy. So we want to make sure that we can make that image darker without changing the colors too much. And why not just give it a little bit of an extra bite and a little bit of an extra oomph. Now, when you look at how an image is incorporated into Photoshop or in your projector or TV, it's always 3 channels RGB. When you look at Photoshop, you also see that we have 3 channels RGB. Okay, so let's go back to layers. Let's create an empty layer. And let's go here to backdrop, and let's go to channels, and let's choose the red channel. I just love the red channel for skin. You can actually see it very quickly. If you go to green, it's a little bit darker in the skin, and blue is really dark. And for this technique, you need light skin. So let's go to red. Now in red, you do Control A or Command A if you're on a Mac, Control C or Command C if you're on a Mac. Whatever. Select all, copy. But you have to make sure that you're on that bottom layer. Okay. Go to your top layer and Control V, or in other words, copy, paste. Sorry, paste. I'm not having my day, sorry guys. So now I have a black and white version on top of my color version, but watch out, this is not black and white, this is a channel. So what you do is you go to here and you go to soft light. Now immediately you see that the whole image gets compressed a little bit more in the blacks, and it just gives your image a way nicer look. A little bit more like, I always call this a little bit the Vogue look. It's a little bit desaturated, but I just like it a lot. There we go. Okay, now I already told you it's a little bit desaturated, and some colors we want a little bit brighter. We want a little bit more saturated. Now when you hold your pen over the dodge tool, you will see that there's also the sponge tool. And sponge tool has an option called saturation. Let's go wild. Let's go to 100%. By using the saturation, I can actually just paint in over areas that I want more bright in colors. Or in other words, more saturated. And there we go. You can really make it shine. Don't overdo this. Or do it like I do now. This is way overdoing it, but I like it. And layer flatten image. The only thing I now have to do is go into my alien skin exposure and just go for exposure 4, and we run exact the same setting that we did before. So this one, there we go. And now both images will have approximately the same look. They're both different of course, but they have the same look, and that's what we want. We want continuity. Okay, somebody says blog is normally some kind of diary, and some wouldn't expect the main website behind it. Maybe call it home. Yeah, we can do that. Okay, I will change the blog to home. So we have a new intern coming in next week. It's his job to make a nice portal with home instead of blog. Whatever you guys want, we do it. Unless it's something I don't want to do. And then we'll think about it. Okay, let's go to 77%. There we go. And layer flatten image. Overall, I'm pretty satisfied with this shot. I like how it looks. I like the whiteness in her skin. They're slightly different from the other one, but hey, that's okay. And close and save. Okay, let's go back to capture 1 and let's go back for the next set, but not before I tell you guys something. Now, when we started Digital Classroom, I told you guys that I wanted to do a book on street and travel photography. And I still want to do that book. So maybe in the future we do a book on street and travel photography. And why did I do that? For the very simple reason, we travel around a lot, and one of my favorite places, of course, is Scandinavia or New York and America on the whole. So what we did is we created 2 instructional videos called Beyond Snaps. In other words, make it beyond the normal snapshots. And one that I'm really proud of was actually the one we did in New York. And I want to show you the trailer of that one. And we use these trailers not to sell you guys stuff, but please do, because you support our work that way, but mostly because we have to set up in between. So let me go to the behind of Beyond Snaps, New York. And I kid you not, you're going to love this one. New York, without a doubt, one of the most beautiful places in the world for street photography. In this video, Beyond Snaps New York, we're not only going to show you tips and tricks about gear, getting great shots, locations, how to talk to people, and much more, but we're also going to show you some places that you may or may not have heard of New York. How about 2 Chinatowns? You probably know one. We actually found another one that's way more interesting. How about a location where you can get great night shots? Or Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash, Amityville. This video is jam-packed with not only photography tips and techniques, but also great locations to visit when you go to the New York area. I'm sure you're gonna enjoy this video. In my opinion, it's one of the best we ever made. So enjoy Beyond Snaps to New York. My name is Frank Doorhoff and I'm a fashion celebrity photographer based in the Netherlands. But most of all, I love teaching you guys about photography. Now, what is the main ingredient of photography? The model, of course, your camera, but most of all, lighting. Photography is painting with light, telling your story with light. And so light is the most important thing in photography. But still, 99% of the photographers let the lighting control them. While in essence, you as a photographer should be able to control the lighting. And that's why this video is created. It's a video about the essential lighting techniques, the lighting techniques that you should learn. how to create a white backdrop, or how to create a black backdrop, how to make sure that there's still shadow in your lighting. But most of all, how about the essential lighting, like Rembrandt, butterfly, feathering your light, making sure that your model is lit the correct way. In this video, we're going to do all those techniques and way more. Very simple tips about how to control your shadows. We talk about light meters. We talk about my favorite plugins. If you're a starting photographer, this is the video for you. This is where you learn everything you need to know about lighting. And after that, you can start telling your story with great lighting. If you're a professional, I'm sure there are a lot of tips in here that also help you. So enjoy our new instructional video, available now. Okay, and we're back. We set everything up. Now, I do want to make one thing clear. This is an interactive digital classroom. You can ask whatever you want, and I will respond to it. Now, I see in the comments on YouTube that actually somebody said he's totally ignoring my last comment about the website. Well, don't ask for it. One thing, I literally just told you guys that we're going to change home or a blog for home. So I'm not ignoring you guys. The only thing is, I think the command you meant is, blog is normally some kind of diary and some would expect the main website behind it, maybe call it home. And then the next one was, well, there should be a main website and a Studio FD website, just make it one website. This is something we can't do, and I will explain this, and this is a little bit of a social media and business tip for you guys. We have a certain company, and our company is Learning with Frank. The website frankdorov.com is the English language website. It's the website where we talk about reviews, videos, where we share our work, and where we literally do the Learning with Frank stuff. So instructional videos, we do all other stuff, but everything connecting with Learning with Frank. The Studio FD website is a Dutch website, and it's only meant for people that want to do weddings, family portraits, dog portraits, or whatever. So it's a Dutch website, and it's more like a commercial website like any other photographer has, like, hey, please visit our studio for your family portrait. I don't want to combine those two for the very simple reason they're two totally different companies. The only reason we have the Studio FD website listed underneath is that if somebody by accident hits the frankdorov.com website, they know there's also a Studio FD website. Or if somebody thinks like, hey, I love Learning with Frank, can he also do weddings? They will actually find that website via the portal. So I'm not ignoring your question. I'm simply stating that they're two different entities. So that's why I didn't answer that question. But that's a business tip for you guys. If you have two different companies, don't combine them in one website if that can confuse people. And in this case, we don't want to confuse people. Studio FD is a normal Dutch website for a normal photographer. That sounds weird. But Learning with Frank is the educational part. So that's totally different from each other. It's two totally different companies. So I'm never ignoring anybody. But sometimes I just can't answer any question in detail. So remember that. Okay, so let's go to... Oh, Annemiek has a question. Let me give you the microphone and turn it on.
Well, it's a really interesting one. It's about, have you ever used the MacMod?
MacMods?
The MacMod system.
I think I have a MacMod system here. I did use it and I did like it. But overall, I just like the Flashbender material a lot more for the very simple reason. It's all foldable. I can just put it in my backpack and I like the outcome of the quality of light. And the Mac, great system and highly recommended, but I highly recommend the Flashbenders. And well, it's a personal choice in the end. You know, nobody can tell you what you have to use. You have to try it for yourself. And the cool thing is that the nice thing about Digital Classroom is that we show a lot of techniques, a lot of material. But the same setups I did before, you can also do with big strobes. You can even do it with light bulbs. It doesn't matter as long as you get the tips from the wide angle, from the angles, from how ETTL works. As soon as you get those tips and the manual tips, you can do it yourself. So don't worry if you use a different system. It will work the same thing. A snoot is a snoot, a grid is a grid. And I don't know what to make any more of that, but it's a personal choice, guys. So don't worry if you use something else. It's okay. I won't kill you. Well, at least I'm not going to say it online. That was a joke. Okay, let me switch over to the cameras again. We have Nadine in a totally different outfit. So there we go. Oh, that looks absolutely awesome. And we're gonna make some really cool shots with this. But how? Well, I want to make sure that I pinpoint my light on my model. So what we have to do is, oh, Nadine, you look awesome. Let me first do it with a strip light. So I'm going to take this one out of the frame. And we're going to use a strip light. And we're going to use high contrast lighting from the side. There we go. Oh, sorry, I'm undressing you. Oh, we know each other for many years, so why not? Okay, let's do this up. So I want to do it a little bit special. And let me just aim it down. And what I want to do with strip lights is actually create like light from above. It's whatever, you know what I mean, right? It looks awesome. Okay, let's take the trigger off and let's just meter the light very quickly. Let's turn this one off. There we go. Okay. Okay, 4.06, 4.07. So just add 1/3 of an f-stop. There we go, 5.6. Okay. Okay, 5.6. Let me first just start out by just sitting down using 24mm. I'm still using that wide angle lens, although in this case it's not really necessary. Okay, let's turn the camera on, works way better that way. Okay. There we go. Now, by using that light from the top, you actually get this really nice light that falls over your model. As you can see here, the eyes get a little bit dark, so I'm actually asking my model just to look up a little bit more. There we go. Just make sure you don't create Walking Dead eyes with, for example, the pupils on one side. Some models really have that tendency, and you really have to be careful for that, because sometimes they look and they just turn their eyes all the way up there and you have this really wide area, and that's really not nice. Okay, let's use that distortion again a little bit. So go lower. I love this. It gives you so much more flexibility. Chin down just a little bit. There we go. And a lot of people are very, very afraid of wide angles. Don't be, guys. You can get beautiful shots with them. The trick, however, is to embrace that distortion. Don't try to hide it. Some people are, if you shoot this on 12, they will actually go like, okay, I have to make sure that the angle is 100% right. Let me do this, there we go. Okay, 100% right, so I don't have any distortion. The thing is, as soon as you just change a little bit with the 12mm lens, you will get distortion. So why not embrace it and just go all the way down and just make it funky as heck. How about this? Almost a full body shot and so close by. So small spaces actually rock. And you see our heating, but that's no problem, radiator. And just go down, there we go. Just make sure that the face isn't too close to the side, because if I do this is just an extreme example, you will see that the face gets too distorted. Well, maybe it also looks nice. I don't know. Yeah, it's okay. Oh, that's really cool. Keep it that way. So this I wouldn't do, because this is a little bit too funky with the face. So what I try to do is just angle it. So angle the camera. And if you want to shoot on 12mm, just make sure that the face stays a little bit in the center of the frame. Like this. And then later on, I can always clone out, for example, the strobe, or just crop it a little bit more. But you remember, it's in a studio and you're very tight. Remember that I use a zoom lens, so I can also go to 24mm. Look at this. Use that zoom. There we go. And that's why we love those lenses. And don't get me wrong, I love prime lenses. But for my work, I just love the fact that I can also zoom in. Okay, let me focus on the eyes. I do have to be honest, this lens is a disaster to focus with the converter. So I really have to get the E-mount version or the Sony version. But hey, this is the one that I have. There we go. Okay, love it. But that's one part. And I like those Dutch angles. Now, when you are, for example, shooting a little bit skewed, and you go like, oh, I didn't see that, and somebody complains, just tell them it's the Dutch angle. Always works. Okay, let's just take this one out very quickly, and let's do something else, which is a little bit more daring. Ooh. That was very daring. Okay, there we go. So I still have that other strobe somewhere here. And we actually have a grid on it. And I will show you that on camera very quickly. So the grid is actually here. So it really pinpoints that light. And the cool thing about it is that we can now make a sort of spot effect on the model. And another thing I do really have to show you guys. This is so cool. This is called orbit. It's orbit, right? Triad orbit. Now watch this. In some cases it will happen that you're in a location where you don't really have a solid state, like here. So let me just try if we can mimic something. Do we have something where I can put it on? A box or whatever. Because this is really nice. Okay. Now, sometimes it happens that, for example, you're living in a box. Or, no, you have a box. Watch this. So, you can literally just change the angle. Oh, Enrique is helping me out now.
No, that's not.
Okay, guys, normally it works. There we go.
The other way.
So you do this,
Yeah.
and you change the angle of your strobe this way. And this creates an immense amount of possibilities if it works. Oh, guys. It's stuck pretty fun. There we go. There we go.
You need to practice a little more.
Yeah, I need to practice. Anyway, you can set it in very many different ways. Don't laugh. I'm trying my best. Oh, now it works. See? So you can literally just change the angle of the legs in any form you want. And the cool thing is you can do it with your foot. So you can literally just pull this down and just set it. It's very, very cool. Very, very simple to do if you practice. Okay. And now it works. Yep. Story of my life. Okay, there we go. Aim it at my model. And just make sure that it's stuck. Oh. Oh. Yep. Don't laugh. I told you, it's one of those days. Okay, let's turn it back. And let's lock it this time. Okay, one moment, guys. There we go. So it's mounted the other way around. Okay, just aim it at my model, turn it on. And don't worry, we're trained professionals. If something falls down, we just fix it. Sometimes you wish you can cut in live broadcasts. Okay, let me see. This is channel B. Can you see through the grid?
No,
Not yet?
a bit more. Almost, yes.
Yeah. So what I'm asking my model, can you see through the grid? Because if she can see through the grid, she's in the hot spot of the light. And that saves you a lot of tinkering. So let me take my remote control again. And meter the light. Okay, f8.8, that's way too much. So let's go down. Okay. 5.6, that's better. Yep. Okay, around 5.6. Great. And again, sorry guys that I messed up the demonstration of the stand. But it's really cool, highly recommended. My cameraman is now laughing. I will get you later. Okay, first things first. Let's make that pinpoint on our model. As you can see here, the hotspot is actually a little bit too low. The cool thing is, I can just raise it a little bit. Is this better?
It seems the same for me.
Seems the same.
Yeah.
Now, the thing you have to realize is this works great with bigger light sources. This is really small, but she has it okay. So always check for yourself in your image, and that's why we always shoot tethered. That's nice. Love it. Okay, so I'm really pinpointing my light to the model at the moment, maybe a little bit higher. So we were in the ballpark and now we're actually fine. Okay, gonna do that extreme angle again. And as you can see now, we also have some light from the top coming in, which I actually like. Gives it a little bit more of an urbex look. Maybe tilt it a little bit more. If you don't like that look, no problem. We'll just zoom in and get a little bit higher. And again, I love this angle in this case. And if you don't like the angle, you can always shoot it straight, of course. But it's a little bit boring, I think, for today. There we go. Okay, Nadine, can you lift your head just a little bit that side? There we go. Awesome. Love it. Really nice. Now you have to be careful with this, because when I look at the image and she has her head tilted up a little bit, I still see that her eyes are really dark, and I almost go like, hey, this is wrong. You have to realize that with small strobes you don't have modeling lights, so you actually see the light from the studio. If you have modeling lights, then you can trust the modeling lights. In this case we don't, so I have to trust on where's my lighting. Now I know in my mind that my lighting is over here. That's the beam of light, so I have to make sure that my model looks into that light source. But also by telling your model, look into the light source, it will help. Unless of course he's looking into the fluorescent tubes, then it doesn't help. Now everything I'm doing is from a low angle. So you might wonder, Frank, how does it look from a higher angle? Well, it will look higher up, down. So let's just try that. And let's just do it nice and extreme, so like this. I'm gonna shoot down. You get this really weird distorted look of our model. Now when I look at this I go like, yeah, I know, it's not that interesting, right? But do you remember those 80s movie posters where they held a gun really close to your face? Let's try to emulate that. Can you point towards the camera? Much more. Almost touch the lens. There we go. Now by using that wide angle and using the shadows, I can create something that's a little bit more creepy and a little bit more eerie. So let me just hold the hand a little bit there and point again. Almost try to touch the lens. There we go. Okay, just move your hand. I'm actually blocking her hand with my camera, I find out. That's the shadow you're seeing. Because we're so close to the model, you can actually see the shadow. Okay, then we shoot it from this angle. I think that will be better. There we go. That's nicer. Okay, just use that 12mm, aiming down, creating that really weird look. Okay, I can still move. There we go. And now maybe when you do that, look into the camera and scream your lungs out without making any sound. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Now as you can see, she's actually covering her face with her hand, right? Yeah, so we have to help her a little bit. Move your hand that way, point towards the lens, and try to touch the lens. And stop, and now scream. 1, 2, 3, go. Way better. Awesome. So let's see what we can do with this in Photoshop. Thank you so very much, Nadine. Oh, we have to do one more thing, and that's really important. We have to shoot the color checker. Because nowadays, we can also use the color checker in Capture One. Okay, let me turn that on. That helps. And of course you have to make a funny face, otherwise the software doesn't work. Still works. There we go. Thank you so very much. Okay, awesome. So let's go to Photoshop and of course Capture One. first switch over to my camera because there were some questions. Let me first go through the questions. Frank takes a drink again. Everybody skål. Tak. That's about the only word I know in Swedish, Norwegish, Finnish. Tak. Let me see. Okay. Do you use autofocus when you tilt the camera? What if you don't have autofocus? Old camera won't do that. Nikon D90. A Nikon D90 should have autofocus. If you don't have autofocus, just use peaking on live view. If you don't have live view, just make sure you nail that focus by using manual focus. And if you don't have live view, if you don't have peaking or whatever, and you are in doubt, there are certain focus fields that you can focus mods. So you can change the original mirror. It's not a mirror. How do you explain that? Let me put it this way. If you look through your viewfinder, you normally see your image, right? But there are special devices and you can actually change that in your camera and then you see something else. And there are also those that are actually made for manual focusable lenses. So you get the same system like, for example, my old Leica. This is an R Leica. And when you look through it, you will actually see a round in the middle. And the more that I focus, the more that round area will actually make the model fit. If it's out of focus, it will look like the model is broken, so one side is a little bit higher than the other one. And if I turn the focus, I will actually just make those two connect to each other, and at that point I know my focus is correct. And at that point you can change, of course, your angle. So it's actually pretty good to do. Rembrandt lighting and door-off perspective. Every photographer must know that. I am absolutely in agreement. And by the way, if you want to have a really good photographer, and can you get the Caravaggio book?
Yes.
Adjust the camera body in tiny... no, don't do the camera body in tiny increments. Very simple. If you do it, just refocus. In my case, I use several techniques for this, including peaking and live view, but in most cases it's very important to just have the correct focus field in your camera. And on my Canon, when I started out with photography, I used the Canon system. I actually had a different focus area for manual focusable lenses because I love those old lenses and they were really, really difficult to focus without live view. So get it, for example, in the Netherlands, Camera Nu sells them, or Camera, whatever camera store. And they're really cheap. I believe they're like 15 or 20 euros. So make sure you check out this guy. Without any doubt, one of my favorite painters. And it looks a little bit like Rembrandt, but I think he's actually a lot better. And, well, I just love it. And you will find something that you always see in my images, a lot of red. Okay, poor Nadine can't do a funny face. Okay, let me see if we have something else. No more questions. Oh, you have a question on Facebook. Okay. Maybe I'm wrong, but I've noticed that when you first meter the light on the model before you shoot, you kind of go with the closest setting that you previously had before. Do you usually go with that, or you previously have the rough idea of the f-stop you're looking for? Okay, Carlos. When I do light metering, the first thing you have to realize is this is a live broadcast. This is an instructional broadcast. So I'm not really worried about depth of field. If I shoot something for myself, the first thing I do is I want to determine the look that I want. So I'm going to determine the lighting that I want. And then I'm going to determine the depth of field that I want concerning the lens. Now with a wide angle lens like a 12mm, it doesn't make any sense to shoot on 4.5 or 5.6. It doesn't change anything. Focus will be from there to forever. But normally, I will determine the f-stop, or the depth of field, determining on the vision I have for that shot. In this case, I will just go to the closest that I have just to speed the process up, because otherwise I have to change stuff over, have to remeter, and for a live broadcast, we just wouldn't do it as fast as possible. But normally, yes, I will determine the depth of field and then set my lights for literally determine any doubt. Okay, have you had the opportunity to try out the new A6400 with the new tracking focus? No. And I can tell you literally why. With Sony, we always know on the day that it's released, we get the news. So in other words, a lot of people think that with Sony, for example, we know it way before. Now there are brands like with Hensel or with DxO or with Phase 1. We know in advance what is coming. and sometimes even a year before. And we, of course, sign a non-disclosure agreement, so we can't tell you guys. But sometimes I hint a little bit with it if I'm allowed to. Sometimes they go like, you can't say it, but you can hint it. So I was hinting like the software for Capture One for the color checker. I was hinting for that like a month like this. And now it's released. With Sony, it's a different story. We literally here on the day of the release, we get a press release with the new hardware. And although I love video, I'm not going to test the A6400 for a very simple reason. There's no in-body image stabilization. And for video, I think that I love that they now finally do a flip-up screen. The only thing that bothers me is that the flip-up screen is in front of the hot shoe. So when you use a microphone on the hot shoe, you can't see the flip-up screen. I go like, why? But I think it's a great camera. Sony just makes the best cameras ever. But I need in-body image stabilization for video. I'm not want to shooting from a tripod. So for now, no, I'm not going to test that camera. And if you want to buy it, it's a great camera without any doubt. But do realize there's no image stabilization in body. And when you want to use that flip-up screen, you can't put anything on your hot shoe. So, well, maybe they fix that in the next release. But overall, I just love the camera. So the A6400 without a doubt will be a great camera. Okay, so, but I want to be honest to you guys. Okay, let's go through this. Okay, the software for the color checker is really easy. If you guys want me to do a video on that, I will do a video on it, of course. Let me see where my pen is. Oh, there we go. And we want to say skål.
Cheers.
Tak, Annevik. Okay, yeah, we're practicing because very soon we are gonna have our Scandinavian tour. Yay! Go to our confusing website. That's a joke. Don't blame me for it. It's free stuff we give away. So go to our confusing website and just find it in the button on top. And of course we have it also in our menu, which isn't confusing at all. It's just a menu. I'm just joking with you guys. So just go there and you can now register for 150 euros for that workshop. Do remind that on February 1st the price will go to 199 euros. And we only have space for 12 people. It's an awesome location. It's very close to Malmö, about half an hour from Malmö.
And Denmark.
And Denmark. And it's absolutely awesome. So make sure you don't miss that one. Okay, first things first. Let's go to our image. I just love this image. Did I nail focus? Yes, I did. Oh, that's cool. Okay, let's take this one and let's just go for one that's a little bit more tilted. Okay, love this one. This is really gritty. Okay, now one with the strip light. I love this one. Okay, there we go. I don't need to go any further. You don't need a gazillion images. Okay, so let me do this one because all the other ones are just repeating myself with, okay, we already did this and I don't want to spend too much time with you guys. Let's make this one glow a little bit more. Let's make that light glow. And this is a really cool trick because you can also do it with, for example, car lights or tungsten light or whatever you want. You can make it glow. Okay, so let's do this. Control D. Let's go into Photoshop. Okay, first things first, let's do the skin. So I'm gonna run that that action 100%. Let's just paint it out where I don't want it. There we go. As you can see here, I'm a little bit more aggressive with my pen. So I'm going to go to my face, or her face of course, and go down just a little bit. There we go. Layer, flatten image, view, fit on screen. Now the first thing I want to do is, before I do that glow effect, because that glow effect is really, really nice and gradient and very subtle, I want to make sure that I first do my pop. So Topaz Studio, clarity. And just go here and go to favorites and just go for your clarity. There we go. Press OK. Now I want everything covered with clarity. The only thing I don't want with clarity is her face. So layer, mask, reveal all, zoom in and take it out of her hands. And as I mentioned before, you can do this really rough. Sorry guys. And then just do this. Cool. Nice. Okay. Now I want that top part to glow. Okay. Let's do that. First things first. Let's do a new layer. Take a brush and make sure that you have the correct color. So let's do that color. There we go. Okay, the first layer I'm only gonna do a little bit. Okay, there we go. Okay. Second layer I'm gonna do exactly the same, but I'm gonna do it a little bit more. Okay. Third layer I'm gonna do it even more. There we go. And depending on what you want, you do it more or less. Okay. First layer, we're gonna just blur a little bit. Filter and blur. Gaussian blur, just a little bit. So not 1000 pixels. That's that you barely see the grid of the light. There we go. Now this alone is already giving it more like an ambient look. So when I do this, you see it already looks a little bit better. Okay, now go for this one and just blur it a lot more. So go to blur, Gaussian blur, and just go, for example, to 400 or maybe even 700 pixels. There we go. But now there's something else that I do. Oh, guys, I really have a bad day. Filter, blur, Gaussian. Okay, there we go. Not too much. There we go. Okay, cool. Now this one, I also gonna lower the opacity just slightly. So I'm gonna start at 0 and just gonna build it up, depending on how much light you want. Now the final one, that's the one where you're gonna go all out. You're gonna go filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and you're just gonna go to 100%. So in this case, 1000 pixels. And this is your main ambient light. This is where, for example, when you do compositing or you have to put light sources in, this is your light that actually spills through the room. So you actually start at 0 and just gradually build it up depending on what you want. In this case, I don't want it too much. I actually think I don't want it at all. But there are many situations where you do want this, so I did want to show you. But in my case, I'm going to go for 0. So I like these two a lot, but I don't like the top one. So I'm going to do layer, flatten image. Okay, now in all essence, the only thing I have to do is, again, alien skin exposure. Just give it that look. And this is something you see in all my work. I spend most of my time in, well, alien skin exposure, determining the look of the shot. Because in all honesty, that's where I think my images comes alive. Ooh, look at this. I love those blue, this is it. I love that blue. There we go. And just press apply. Now, if you want to get my presets, and in all honesty, I want to tell you a little bit about presets. Don't buy presets that retail for like $199 or 199 euros for the very simple reason. Presets you can build yourself. It's not that hard, it's not rocket science, and presets are pretty easy to build. Now, when you buy a pack like my pack, you get like, I believe 80 or 70 presets in alien skin exposure, and we sell them for like 10 euros. The cool thing about this is your starting point. So you look what you like and then you change it to your own liking. And that's what you have to do with all presets. You don't want to just copy a photographer. You want to make sure that you build it your own. So it just saves you time. Now for 10 bucks, it's a no-brainer. Just get those presets. For $199, I think you should really think about, is it worth that much? And in my opinion, it's never worth that much. A plugin, yes. Presets, no. So make sure you, spend your money wisely. Okay, we go back here. There we go. And in all honesty, I think the image is done. I'm just going to do flatten image. I am going to check very quickly if I didn't miss anything. Nope. Looks pretty cool. File close and save yes. Okay, done. The other ones I'm going to retouch when we're offline because I don't want to do this stuff over and over. Okay, let me first see if we have any questions on Facebook. Good day from the USA. Yes. Let me see. Okay, no questions on Facebook. Let me see if we have any questions on YouTube. No. Okay, and again, if you want me to do a video on that whole color checker thing for Capture One, just let me know. But it's really incredibly simple. But I will do a video for you guys if you want. Now, I want to do one more final thing. You know that we give you guys a lot of free material. I always answer questions. Sometimes I make a little bit of a joke with you guys. Don't take that too harsh. But I do want to ask you support for something. And that's actually our Patreon. Now, why Patreon? Patreon is something that is like a tip jar. If you like what we do, you can start out by, let's say, €1 a month or $1 a month. For the $1 a month, you get access to a closed-off Facebook group, or when Facebook doesn't exist anymore, whenever that will happen, we're going to find somewhere else. And we do portfolio reviews there, we have discussions, and we share behind-the-scenes images. It's really cool. Alison
with the audio.
Is there something with the audio? 1, 2. Now audio should work.
On Facebook, there's a sign.
Let me see. Oh, yep.
Batteries are gone. And can hear people me? Can people hear me?
Yeah, people can hear you and people can hear me now again, but my battery is gone and I don't know when.
Okay, I want to tell you that we're going to the photography show in the UK in March, and also we'll be on the professional imaging also in March.
Okay.
That's important. And in April we'll do the workshop in Sweden. You know about that.
Yep.
So that's all for now. Next digital classroom is with another guest, a photographer, and you all know him, I guess, and it's gonna be pretty awesome. It's also about inspiration, and it's February 13, so check it out.
And it's not on a Friday, February 13. Now I have this mic because my batteries died. I'm so very sorry, guys. Okay, so let me just do some questions. Okay, let me see. If you want to buy Alien Skin, would you go bundle or just a plugin? I would go for the plugin only. I don't use it separately, and I know Alien Skin will kill me when I say this, but I still believe that Lightroom can't be beaten. For the very simple reason, Lightroom is just plain awesome with keywords, with smart albums and whatnot more. So in my opinion, just get the plugin. If you really don't like Adobe Photoshop and you don't like Lightroom, get the full version, because then you have something that looks like Lightroom and that operates like Lightroom. But in the end, when you do Creative Cloud, let's be honest, guys, Creative Cloud is like, what is it? I think about $10, $15 a month, and you get Photoshop and Lightroom. I see absolutely no reason to not do that and get an alternative software, because you need Photoshop for a lot of stuff and Lightroom is free with it, so why not? And by the way, we have a little bit of a guest in our studio. Chewy. It's our Labradoodle. Isn't he cool? Yep. So anyway, okay, so I had some more questions. Let me see here. No Facebook group anymore, no sound. Okay, the sound we got fixed now. Okay, off topic. Comments on Bohemian Rhapsody, the Oscar nomination. Yeah. Let me put it this way. Let me start out with saying and stating I'm a huge Queen fan. Without a doubt, a huge Queen fan. I always tell people Queen, any other band, and the rest. So, yeah, I love Queen. Queen is very important. We called our son Brian. We actually met Brian May a few times, and Roger too. They're great, great people. Very, very humble. And I just love every single song. I even like Hot Space. I went into Bohemian Rhapsody prepared, and I loved it. There's one thing that annoyed the heck out of me. And I didn't mind that they played like Freddie just met Mary Austin during one evening and he became the singer of Queen also in one evening, and Smile actually and they changed the name. The real story, of course, is that Mary Austin and Freddie already knew each other, and that actually Tim Stoffel already said that Freddie Mercury would be the new singer of Smile. So that's a little bit of a play, and I understand it's a movie. The only thing that really bugged me is the whole AIDS thing and the 4 years. Queen never broke up for 4 years. In fact, before Live Aid, they just came off a world tour for The Works. 16 or 26 tour dates. And Freddie was great with voice. And at that point, he didn't know he had AIDS. So the whole thing, like, they had to prepare for Live Aid. They have to struggle because they didn't know how to play the songs anymore. And Freddie said he has AIDS and went on stage coughing up blood. That was the part that I think, without a doubt, especially because Brian and Roger were involved in the movie, shouldn't be in the movie. The real story is, of course, that Freddie heard about AIDS in '87. So at Live Aid, there was no singer that was better by voice, and you can hear that in the AOs and whatever. He was one of the best rock singers ever, and at that point he was great at voice because they just finished a world tour. They never broke up. The thing that they left out, and I understand that, is of course the whole South Africa apartheid thing. Because at one point they were the pariahs of the news for the very simple reason they played in Sun City. So that's the only thing about the movie I didn't like. Anything else, it was a blast. The movie was absolutely amazing. I hope they make a second one. And to be totally honest, John Deacon, oh my. He looked exactly like John Deacon. Brian May was incredibly close. Freddie looked great. The only guy, Roger, he was okay, but overall the movie is great and I love the Oscar nomination. They should win every Oscar they have. Because let's be honest, it's Queen. Any other questions? Let me see. What's the best video you saw for learning how to use gels? I think it's Creativity and Styling. It's in the Mastering the Model Shoot series and it's called Creativity and Styling. Let me see if I can get that on screen really fast. On my website. Okay, let me switch over to this. Let me do picture in picture. Okay, sorry guys, I have to use this microphone. Let's go to shop and go to direct video downloads. And the one for gels and everything. And I don't even know if gels are really on there. I think they are. Yeah, using color gels. This is the one. Mastering the Model Shoot 3 Creativity. That's the one you should really get if you want to get more into the creative stuff with lighting. It's really awesome. So it's here. So Mastering the Model Shoot 3. I'm sorry guys, I forgot to share my screen. So you go to direct downloads. And you scroll down. And then you find your creativity. And this is the one. Okay. So that's that question. Let me see if there's any more. Queen Live Aid, best gig ever. Without any doubt. Without any doubt. Thanks bro, see you on Twitter talking about Queen. I'm always up to talk about Queen, so let's do that, no problem at all. Thank you so very much for joining us for Digital Classroom. Thank you so very much BenQ and Rogue for making Digital Classroom possible. And we'll see you again next time, because then we have a really cool guest. And it's going to be about inspiration. And it's one of the best photographers, in my opinion, for weddings and other stuff. And he's English. And he lives in the Netherlands. And he teaches workshops as well. And he's awesome. And he's great. Can I say his name? No. I can't say his name? No. Okay, I can't say his name. But it's awesome. So, make sure you check out next time. Guys, if you have any questions, just feel free to ask me online after the show. This is recorded, of course, so it will be on YouTube. And make sure to leave comments, because I always try to answer them directly and personally. Thank you so very much, guys. See you again next time. Bye-bye.